Lord forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack making backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the vital speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanished. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby May. Just caught a touchdown from the bay.
By the time 1991 would roll around in St. Louis, a lot of people would look at two mainstream occurrences to blame for the biggest change in the city. A 1988 Hollywood blockbuster film directed by Dennis Hopper, and a song that a very popular gangster rapper would release on his album that very same year.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Gangs, drugs, and guns mixed for a violent past 24 hours on the streets of St. Louis.
This has been a disastrous year in many St. Louis neighborhoods, with the murder rate heading towards an all-time high. It's one of the reasons the St. Louis Police Department has decided to buy guns, no questions asked.
It's just the skull itself. The facial area would be here is missing, and the base portion of the skull.
Police in East St. Louis are scratching their heads in amazement and disgust. They say this adult human skull could have helped them crack a mystery if only they'd gotten it sooner.
If we had been able to get that skull a month and a half ago where it was still intact, through forensics, we might have been able to find out who the victim was.
Laying right here, between this tree and this pole right here.
Instead, police found out only yesterday when this woman called them.
But when I seen it, I don't want my kid playing with nothing like that, because I don't know what's on it. You know, I got a 7-year-old, so I'm thinking about my child.
She called police as soon as she found the skull. But even that was at least a month after a man down the block had spotted it and chosen not to alert police. He reportedly didn't want to talk to TV reporters. Instead, he let his kids play with and even spray paint the empty human cavity. This time it was a skull, but the next time it might be a homicide. And if things go as they have been going, police say they probably won't get much cooperation. This is just another example of that, of people not wanting to get involved in their communities. Police say the skull could have belonged to a missing person. Animals helped destroy portions of the skull while neighbors waited to call the police. So, as a clue, it's virtually useless. Police will continue to ask neighbors for help in solving this case, but experience has shown getting people to talk is often like beating their heads against a wall. In East St. Louis, Jonathan Clark, News 4.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Gangs, drugs, and guns mixed for a violent past 24 hours on the streets of St. Louis. 7 victims were wounded in drive-by shootings.
Steve Jankowski reports police fear this might be the beginning of a violent summer.
8 people were sitting on this porch in the 4000 block of Page around midnight. A car pulled up, shots were fired, and 4 people were hit, one of them in the head. The 22-year-old man is now in serious condition. Then about 12:30 this afternoon, a car pulled by this house in the 2900 block of Bailey. At least one man inside the car opened fire. 3 people were hit in the buttocks and legs. The car sped off with people from the neighborhood in pursuit. Several blocks away, the car struck a pole and the gunman fled on foot. This is not the first time these 2 rival groups have exchanged gunfire, and police fear it won't be the last.
Summer's here. This is only the beginning. It's going to be a hot summer. Guaranteed.
Officers patrolled the area with the help of the canine squad and thought they had found their suspect in a house near where the car was abandoned, but that lead didn't work out.
Police say that rival gangs and crack cocaine are behind a lot of the shootings that take place on city streets, many involving innocent victims. And one officer that I talked with today about this shooting indicates that more people would die if these guys were better shots.
They're trying to shoot at the biggest part, and then when they shooting, their hands drop, and then they just hit the leg. But they don't know what they're doing. So you can tell it's all teenagers that's mainly involved in all this.
Other officers say shooting in the legs is just a warning or an attention getter, that when the matter is really serious, larger, more powerful weapons will be used and the results will be more deadly. People who live under the gun say the end result is the same.
Don't make no sense. dope related, gang related. It's not, ain't getting us nowhere.
Those residents add it may take the death of the rivals to bring the violence to an end. I'm Steve Jankowski, News 4.
Now, today's shootings are tied to rival gangs. Police are not sure the motive for the shooting last night on Page.
Police looking at niggas through a microscope. In LA, everybody and their mama sell dope. They trying to stop it. So what the fuck can I do to make a profit? Catch a flight to St. Louis. That's cool, because nobody knew us. We stepped off the plane. 4 gangbangers. Professional crack slingers. Ice Cube, My Summer Vacation, from his classic second solo album, Death Certificate. Release date, 1991. St. Louis, y'all been asking for this one forever. What up, though? It's your lad, Popalot. Salute the almighty MOBB. In almost every town, you'll hear stories of mythical, larger-than-life, legend-like figures. In the city of St. Louis, Dorsey Brandon is going to be that one. In his short life, he would not only go on to be the leader of one of the most feared gangs that the city has ever seen, Boys of Destruction, and he is also said to be one of the main figures that would help introduce gangbanging to the city. In the mid-20th century, St. Louis, Missouri would witness a gang culture that would cast a long shadow over its neighborhoods for decades. It is my belief that one of the influential external factors that would contribute to the emergence of gang culture in the city of St. Louis was the music that was going on at the time. Some people would describe BOD or the Boys of Destruction as a breakdancing or dance crew prior to them being one of the most feared gangs in the city. And that makes sense because it transcends with the time. Now, if you think of the late 80s and the mid 1980s, people across the country was breakdancing. But by the time 1990 and 1991 rolled around and gangster rap was introduced to the fold, things would change dramatically. In 1991, Ice Cube would release a song titled Summer Vacation, which would describe how Los Angeles gangs and gang members would establish different drug networks, specifically in St. Louis. Now, Ice Cube and gangster rap was not the only influence on St. Louis at that time. 3 years prior to this crucial time in the city, a film by the name of Colors would go on to be released to the big screens in 1988, and it would offer a gritty portrayal of Los Angeles gang life. While set on the West Coast, the film was said to have a profound impact on St. Louis, with a local criminologist by the name of Scott Decker saying that it was Colors and the rise of gangster rap that had the most profound effect on local gangs. And it would be guys like Dorsey Brandon and his said-to-be main rival Tyrone Hitman T. McClendon that would take it from the big screen and make it a reality in the streets. Hitman T, who would lose his life at the young age of 17, according to his brother Otis McClendon, would go on to be a member of the Bloods, as well as the alleged leader of the Horseshoe Posse, as it was depicted on the series Gangland. Ironically, both Hitman T and Dorsey Brandon would lose their lives in that same year of 1991, where the city would really see a peak in the homicide rates. According to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, printed on Sunday, September 22nd, 1991, it would state that Tyrone Hitman T. McClendon would lose his life in March of that year at a service station at the intersection of Van Ventnor and St. Louis Avenues. According to the Post-Dispatch, they would say that his violent history is told in white and black paint on the walls of the neighborhoods where he lived and died. Gangland would paint the picture of him being caught graffitiing in a rival neighborhood. But according to the papers, who looked like they spoke to someone on the scene, the story would be that he got out of a car with the person saying that he had on all this red and he think he owns everything. The person would go on to say the problem was he was a block off his turf. He would be shot in the back, then taken to St. Louis University Hospital, where he would die 3 hours later due to his injuries. And Hitman T must have been a hated guy, because not that killing him was enough. 2 months after his funeral, where a near riot would erupt, Molotov cocktails would be thrown through the windows of the home where his mother and his family lived in the 5100 block of Vernon Avenue in the Academy neighborhood. In that incident, it was said that 8 people, including a 1-year-old baby, was in the house, with each getting out safely. Tyrone's older brother, by 5 years, Otis, would go on to tell the newspapers that Tyrone died an honorable death in defense of the family or the Bloods, explaining to the newspaper how his younger brother had been involved in shooting at members of the rival Crips gang. And as far as Dorsey Brandon, like I stated earlier, his life almost sounds somewhat mythical. In Gangland, they would explain the situation how he would even go on to dig up Hitman T's body from the graveyard. Now, though I couldn't find any evidence of that, I did see where he was a pretty tall guy. He's slim, about 6'3", they describe. He probably should have been on the court getting buckets. But by all accounts, it seems like he was just destined to be a gangster, with stories about him getting shot for the first time at the age of 14. Some people saying as many as 7 times. Dorsey Brandon would actually only make it 7 months longer than Hitman T, and he would lose his life on Halloween of 1991. The 18-year-old, who was said to reside on the 1300 block of Granville Place, would be fatally shot in what the newspaper would describe as another gang-related drive-by incident, with that same newspaper article saying 9 people have been killed in St. Louis in the last 6 days, raising the city's 1991 murder toll to 224. They would go on to say that there were 139 killings at the same time last year and just 177 for all of 1990. Now, y'all make sure y'all hit the red bell and subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real trill spill shit is dropping. St. Louis, I definitely need y'all in the comment box. Y'all get downstairs, let me know what we need to be talking about in the city. Definitely need to know what section y'all in. Everybody else, y'all let me know what we need to cover, what stories we need to talk about, what I missed, what I got wrong, all of that. Hit me directly, Instagram, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And until the next tap-in, I appreciate y'all tuning into the streets. It's Shades Popalot. Salute the almighty MOBB.